Good afternoon here in the Netherlands. It's 4 o'clock. We have a fresh guest. We have Muhammad here. We'll get to him in a second. But first, another Dutch Angular group meetup. And I don't think it's been a while, isn't it, Bonnie, since you've joined one live, hasn't it?
Yeah, but I'm always nearby and I'm always watching.
Of course, in our hearts as
I've
well.
been, running around.
I guess. How you been?
It's good to be here. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. Alles goed?
Alles goed. Nice.
I've been oefening my Netherlands spreken, klein beetje.
And of course, we have the famous panelist, Sander. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, just fine. I'm still awake, so...
Good. That's what we like to hear. And the man of the hour, Muhammad. We have, I think you have a very interesting topic for us. Tell us something about yourself.
This is Muhammad Awais. I'm actually working on the JavaScript technology since working in the software industry since 5 years. So I work with the full tech stack to build the web apps and the mobile applications. So more over it's over the Angular technologies using the JavaScript and TypeScript things. Yeah. So for today, we are actually going and currently I have been working with the good applications of small projects and enterprise projects as well. So Angular is a very big fan, like it's going cool with it. So yeah, for today, I'm going to be present over building extensible and reusable components for the Angular applications. So yeah.
All right, cool. Let's jump right in.
Yeah. So the thing about is the question comes in, what is actually the reusable component? So the reusable components are the things that are actually deep dive when you are working over the large enterprise application. So like, let's suppose if you are having the things to get touch in, and like we have to develop the things like that will be reusable. Like if we are having the things that are actually consuming more over the time and or either or the lesser time, but for writing again and again the thing, so that's actually the very bad practice. So that's why the reusable components are very foremost thing when we are working on the enterprise application. So about the reusable components in Angular, actually Angular have a component architecture that relies on the two different kind of components. So one are actually the container components and the other ones are presentational. However, the container components are the main components. They are actually smart, that are actually directly connected with the logic and for the backend services to get that in. And then after, we are having the presentational components. So these are actually lying inside the container components to hold on and to perform the things to show the data. Like they are dumb and lazy. They only have they only present themselves with the data comes over into them. So this is actually how the type of components we are having in the architecture of Angular. Yeah, so the reusability of the components is actually really matters when we are actually focusing on four of the things. Like if we are making sure that we are actually working in the consistency of the reusability, so it's actually very good for the applications and good for the project we are currently working on. So with the reusability, four things will be very improvable. So one is for quality, and the second one is consistency. The third one is better focus, and the fourth one is faster development. So how quality comes in? Let's suppose if we are working with a team of like 15 plus or 20 plus developers on a single code base. So if we are like making sure, like let's suppose if we are having an ERP or the simple size of the application. So how the totally team comes up, how the totally team is actually sync up with this. So that's how about the quality things, which is actually the matters. And the consistency point comes over. Let's suppose if we are trying to achieve a single goal inside the application, so the logic and the implementation for that part will be same throughout the application. So that's how the consistency works inside the reusability. Like let's suppose if I have categories drop down, or if I have a single presentational component that is actually used in 100 plus places for the inside the application, so that it is how really it matters. So yeah. And the better focus is like if the component is, and if the reusable thing is already developed, so you have to like follow the instructions and like focus on the other development, and just it's also actually take lesser time. So that's why it's faster development mentioned here. So if we are having with like 200 plus lines of code or 100 plus lines of code writing again and again, so this is actually a good practice to write over on the first place and like use throughout the application. Yeah. As I mentioned, like container components. So the container components are actually tied with your business logic of the application. So you can actually not share these container components throughout the application, like however we can share the presentational one. So as in the picture, you guys can see here is about the server, and server is directly connected with the green ones. So green ones are actually the container component that are actually also known as hog, higher order components. Higher order components are actually consist of these presentational components chunks that will be actually dive into the data which is comes from their containers, like the main parent components. One of the use case, like I have worked on like few days ago inside, because I'm currently working with the team and we are on the mission to convert the .NET WinForms application on towards the Angular, and which actually took time around 12 years to develop those ERP. So yeah. So inside it, I'm also the part of the team. So we are having with the chunk that is actually used throughout the application that will be going to use on 200 plus places. So the team decides to write down a reusability. Like here comes the reusability. So we have write down the reusable component. So the main focus of that reusable is I want to show you with guys like that reusable will have the two layered and the three layered as well. So inside that, like the JSON which is coming from the backend, so it is actually having with a tree layered structure, like with the array of objects, and inside that we are having with another property. Then inside that we are again with the array of object iteratively. So this is how it goes on. Like let's suppose there are actually multiple categories for the two layered, and inside each of the category we are having with one plus array of objects for this. And for the three layered, we are for the first layer we are having with the groups, and inside every group there are actually multiple categories, and for every category there are multiple items. So this is how that's actually the use case for, so that we have developed the use case. So let me show you guys. So this reusable will be going not only to work with a single endpoint. So there are actually 15 plus endpoints that will be actually using this reusability, this reusable component. Like let's suppose if I mentioned few of them here. So these are actually products, users, departments, stations, vendors, and a schedule somehow, and so on and so forth. So for the product side, for the products API and the users API, departments API, these are actually these APIs are actually designed in a way that we can pass the layer property there. So that's how, like let's suppose in the products API, my reusable component is actually passing the count of number. Like let's suppose I want to have the two-layered tree for products, so it will be actually sending back to me in the two-layered structure with the category and item ones on the right side one. And let's suppose if I'm passing my users API the layers 3 count, so it will be sending me the users data in a tree with a 3-layered structure, like group, categories, and items. So these are the whole APIs are actually designed in a way with these layer strategies. So yeah. Yeah. So after consuming this, like this is actually a very big reusable component, and till now we are actually currently building it, and that reusable having around 837 line of code till now, and it is sitting over inside the Angular application. The TypeScript code is around 837 lines and approximately around 40 line of code inside the HTML as well. So this is how it will be going to use, and I will be after this snippet slide, I will be show you guys like how it's viewing on the browser. So that's how like app layered is a reusable as you like, and inside the Angular applications, if you want to reuse and if you want to render the component, the presentational component. So this is a way, like with the selector we can also use and call that one. So as I called that, this is actually the consumption. Let's suppose that tree layered reusable written over, and this is actually these line of code is actually we are writing to consume that reusable component in the classes we want. So this is how we want the layers as input decorator, like 3. And so this will be actually showing that the tree layer that will be rendered with the 3 layers, and the heading for the first layer, and the heading for second layer, and the endpoint. So this this reusable is actually going to take the endpoint as well, like the endpoint to call the API, and also for the endpoint params as well. And the good thing is, like, this reusable is written over the keys as well. Like in the JSON we are having with the keys. Like, let's suppose if I want to if I'm actually hitting the API for the product, so I'm passing that the second layer key is categories, and the third layer key inside the JSON is item. So yeah, this is how it's compatible with the backend. So yeah, all selected true is a feature. Like on the third level, we are having the button. So these will be going to be all selected, and these are after that, these are actually above all the input decorators. And at last, we are having the 2 output decorators. This is actually the concept. The input and output decorators are actually the main concept for the data binding we are having with. So if I want to send data from parent to the child, like from container to the presentational component, so I will be using the input decorators. And if I want to get the data from child component towards upwards to the container component, like from presentational to container, so on these cases we will be using the output decorators in a way that, so yeah. And the good thing is more features for that reusable we have developed is, this is actually that will be working in the edit mode, that and also the all selected features inside it, and the dependent API calls. Like, let's suppose products API is dependent over like the parent. Like, let's suppose the product reusable is dependent over the user's reusable, so I have to call these reusable 2 times, and that will be actually the dependent thing. I think it's that input decorator is missing here. That's actually triggered input decorator, which is actually using with the subscribers like RxJS reactive pattern. So that is actually taking the dependency from the first one, like from the first reusable to call and render second one. So yeah. And also, let me show you guys the live view so that you guys can better understand how it will be. So yeah, this is how the 2-layered reusable will be presenting it. So inside it, we are using with ng Zoro library for Angular. That's actually pretty good for the ERP applications. So for the first layer, for the 2-layered reusable, on the first layer we are having with the multi-selectable tree, and I have selected with the 2 of the categories here. And after selecting the categories, the items belonging that are actually called here with the group, like let's suppose item 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are actually belongs from category 1, and the item 1 from the second category below here. So this is how actually you can select, and like you on every trigger of the select, and on every and on every selecting the three of the layers, so that will be actually the parent is actually getting the updated data on every trigger for this. So yeah. Inside it, we have also used the subject and the behavior subject patterns inside it. So that's actually the concept for Angular RxJS. So that's actually the reactive pattern. So that is actually consecutively used inside it. And this is how the 3-layered reusable will be showing like this. So for the first layer, which is for groups, so I can choose the multiple groups from here, and the categories that are actually belongs to each of these groups I've selected. So that will be automatically filtered in the second one, like for the categories drop down here. And let's suppose I am and I have selected 2 of the categories here, private events and Lacrate. Then after the items belongs to those categories will be listed down below in the group manner. So let's suppose now I have selected only 2 items, like from the category 1. So the parent will receive the items as well, and the tree layered structure for the selected hierarchy as well. So this is how powerful it is. So this is actually moreover every developer have every like different type of scenario and the different type of problems they are actually facing with. So this is only a use case I want to show you guys. Like this is all the strategy. This is all over the reusability method. So we have consumed around like with the 800 line of code and the TypeScript, and with the like 50 or 60 line of code inside the HTML is actually thrilling throughout the ERP. So this reusable is actually using inside around 250 places still now in the reports and setup. So yeah, in that team, uh, inside that application. That application is an ERP. So yeah. So I have another cool use case. Like this is a thing we have. This is a thing like we have. I've actually consumed inside the car wash app. So this is one of my separate clients. So yeah, we have developed the car wash like in a way that, like, let's suppose if you guys can see the category slider in the first image for the home page, and in the second image in the new service request creation. So the categories carousel is actually the reusable that is actually using throughout the application as well. And these cards that are actually listed down here with the different scenarios, so these are also used here. And if you guys can notice that for the first screen, the categories are actually not selectable; they are actually clickable. So if I'm going to select the mini size category from the first screen, so it will be migrated, it will be routed towards the next screen. And however, inside the new service request, the same reusable is used, but if we guys are selecting those any of these categories, so that will be actually sending the selected category ID towards its container parent component. So this is how it's actually possible with your input decorator. So let's suppose I have consumed this category slider on the first of my screen. So when I actually pass the input decorator, like it's selectable or not. So if I'm passing false parameter as my input decorator for the selectable thing, for the selectable input, so it will not actually react the things like inside for the second screen it's reacting. So yeah, that's how. It's also built over Angular, and for this, I have consumed the capacitor. Yes, capacitor is also good. Capacitor is actually very helpful to release the builds, basically developed by the Ionic. So yeah, this is how this category slider inside the car wash. So we can consume like this, like app slider, and this select category. This select category is the output decorator, which is actually sending the selected category back towards the parent. There are actually many more features, but due to the non-discrimination, I'm not sharing those things here. So that's why. If the more features, like if you want to show the selection, or if you want to maintain selected categories in a tree layer, or if you want to send selected categories back to the parent, so this is how all the features are actually working inside it. So yeah, reusability is like very a more important concern to work with for every, like even either you are working on a small or like simple applications, like we are like let's suppose if you are working on 5 to 6 module based applications with the components. So either if you are actually consist of with the reusability, that is actually making your application a super fast to go on the higher next levels. So yeah. So now let's code it. Let's code it. I will show you guys. I will show you guys how this reusability totally comes up, because in this talk we are having with also beginners as well. So I'm going with a with faster track, and let me show you guys the code. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a sucker for live code, so I can't help but hop in here. Are you going to show the both the slider and the three category, the 3-layer thing?
For the slide thing?
Yeah. I'm very curious about that slider with the code snippet you showed, but I also have a question about that later. Yeah.
This one?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is actually super. This was actually super fast and super cool
Right.
as well. Like we are also using. I will also use inside, but I was not having that much in time. The project delivery was on my head, so either that I have developed this one. So this is actually super cool. Like the this will be actually. Making sure like we have to pass the input decorator as I mentioned above, so we have a total control over this category slider. So yeah, for let's suppose I'm passing on the first screen that I'm using this that I want to use this category slider as non-selectable, like to be the routable. So I will be actually passing that flag with a boolean like true or false, so that will be actually
Right.
interacting like this. So yeah,
And
and on the second,
that was kind of the question I had behind this. So I'm glad you already touched on that. Thank you. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm curious to your
Yeah.
code. So let's hop in.
Let's the npm run here, because npm installing. After that, the npm install is thing like every Angular developer is very fond of this. Like this is actually this is actually installing the dependencies for the code, like the dependencies we are having. If I have just cloned this repo from one of the GitHub. So here actually I used this tree layered for the on the sample level, because I don't have an I don't want to show that real life example for that ERP due to NDA signs things. So yeah, and for this for showing the code, I have actually developed the sample one looking same like that for the three layered, as I show one of the use case there. So I will be showing how it works with, and I will go throughout the code how we can pass in the input decorator and how we can pass back the output decorator, so that it will be getting the data back. So yeah. The reusability is like very found of thing if you guys are working on the things like this is actually foremost things. And also like working with the reusability, there are actually many good more concepts as well. Like if you are building a reusable component, so either with this data bindings for ng like for input and output decorators, and you can also consume the reactive patterns rxjs, as I mentioned earlier. With the rxjs, actually you guys can consume the subject rx the subject one from rxjs, and the behavior subject as well. So like let's suppose I want to add the day and morning switch inside our application, like dark mode and light mode. So I'm also the behavior subject pattern is actually very good for that use case as well. Like that will be actually listening throughout the application. So yeah, how RxJS is working on, like reactive patterns are actually the things that will be listening throughout the application. Like let's suppose if I have developed if I have actually three components, and I want to if I want to trigger and like listen throughout listen inside the both of or three of those components. So I will be actually consuming the subject and the behavior subject of the subject behaviors there. So that will be actually when those observables are actually changed, like the subject and the behavior subject. So if there will be a service that will be actually changing the data for that, so the subscribers for the other components that are actually consecutively listening for them. Like let's suppose I have a dark mode service and I'm consuming it inside throughout the application. So what I when I will be switching from dark to light, so beside that there is a service that is storing that state inside this. So let's suppose there is a behavior subject from rxjs, so I have switched my dark mode towards light mode. So that light mode will be stored and will be changed to the next value for that behavior subject, and the connected other components with that service that will be actually getting the updated state for that observable. So this is how the reactive patterns work on.
Very cool examples. Is it, I mean, the npm install is taking a while, as it always does, especially when you're live. Is there maybe an idea that we can already jump to or look a little bit of the code that you want to? Oh, give me a second. Yeah. We take a look already a little bit of the code that you were going to look at, and we can always get back to the terminal and run it later again.
Sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So this is how actually it will be working on. Let's suppose this is actually the tree layered inside the reusable component. Develop will be like this. Like this is actually the reusable component. So this is actually the first one drop down, and this one will be the second one drop down, and this one will be the third layer, which is actually with the buttons one. So let me jump into the slide, and I will show you that's what I'm showing. Like this is actually the thing I want to show you in code, like how this will be implemented in our real application I was talking about earlier. So this will be actually the first one drop down for the groups, and this one is the drop down for categories, and this one are the actually the categorized buttons that will be the items. So yeah. And here is actually the JSON data. You don't have to like see if you want to see the data. Like this is how the layers were structured in. Like on the very first of thing we are having with the group, and inside the group we are having with the multiple categories, and inside every category we are having with multiple items. So here are the items. If I am bunching this out, and these are actually the categories. So inside every of the group, we are having with the categories, multiple categories, and inside every category, we are having with the multiple items. So this is how the API will be responding. So and after that, there are actually three methods that will be actually emitting our change. So this is actually on group change. So this on group change method will be triggering just after if we are changing this first one groups. So let's suppose if I have changed the group one and selected any of the group, so this method will be triggered for the on group change, right? And that will be actually taking the ID for the selected group and filtering throughout the data JSON and mapping the category and items for that group and finalizing those into the separate categories. So yeah, this is how. And whenever so the categories that are actually finalized here, so that will be now popping up in that will be populated into the second layer, which is the categories one. So this is how they're actually mapped on. And after selecting the second layer for the category, any of the category, like let's suppose I have selected the private events, so that will be the method that will be like triggered on the change of second layer. So yeah, and it will be taking the selected category for the second layer, and then after it's actually mapping throughout the categories, like which category is it's belong to, and taking the items from that category and mapping separately here. So yeah, and so this is how these two layers will be implemented. And for the third, the last layer, that is actually the button. So if you are actually selecting on every of the items belonging to those categories, so that is actually sending the data towards the parent. As I was talking about, so this is the concept for data binding. So here is the output decorator, which is actually written inside the reusable component. So this is actually very helpful, and this will be taken care of if you want to send the data from presentational, like from child towards the container, the parent components. So this that's how, like let's suppose the item is selected. So the item, let's suppose there are actually 2 or 3 items were selected. So those items will be maintainable in the selected items and array, and that is actually sending back towards the parent in a form like, okay, the filtration you have performed, like I have selected 3 groups, and for 3 groups I have 7 categories, so I have selected 3 of categories, and inside every category I have a 3 of items, so I've selected 4 or 5 items from mix-up categories. So this is whole the bunch which is actually going back to the parent. So okay, this is your selectable thing. So this is how it's implemented here. And for using it, this is actually the construction for tree layered, and only the single line which is actually thrilling up here inside the home component. So this is a single line for that component will be rendering in your application. So like, let's suppose I have currently consumed it inside the home page component. So if I have, let's suppose, 15 more components that will be usable, like that will be containable. As I was mentioning that in the ERP I was working on with a team of 200 plus developers. So there are actually 200 pluses that this single line will be thrilling up there. So this single line is actually rendering this reusable component for you, and this is how the output decorator will be finishing, like flashing up. This is the all selected items, which is actually getting the data from the child. And for inside the homepage application, this is actually the method for every trigger from the child. So this parent will be having with the updated tree that I was talking about. So this is how the parent will receive those components.
Ooh, now we get into the real stuff.
Yeah.
No, excellent, excellent explanation and nice run through there. So I'm wondering now what it looks like.
Our inside this
Oh, you're still running one, I guess. Yeah.
yeah. Inside the slides, I was actually mentioned two of the use cases. One is from the car wash application, and one is from the ERP. So I have shared the ERP one here, but I can also share. I have the open source repository for that car wash application. So I will be sharing those. That ERP. So my GitHub is. Let me share with you guys. So my GitHub is this Muhammad Awais Sheikh. So you can find it here. So inside the repositories, I have the car wash, maybe, as I remember. It's not there, maybe. That there will be on the separate one, I think, or maybe it's private. So I will be sharing on some of the channel. Yeah. Okay, so it's compiled successfully now. We are going to see here. So this is actually the tree layered. So for now, I haven't implemented the multi-layered thing inside this. So this is actually working on 101 for now. So either on in the slides, I have mentioned this for the multiple layers. So and for that ERP, we are actually using with the school library. Let me show you guys on. So this is actually the thing we are actually consuming there inside the application. So this is how they are actually the trees structured there. So you guys can select, and also this is actually very useful library if you are working on the enterprise applications. So yeah. And here for now, I have actually used the Bootstrap. Bootstrap is actually for taking the single select 101. So let's suppose if I'm selecting group 2 from here. So now you guys can see the categories from these are actually filtering out. So it's very simple for doing the JavaScript things, but it was actually hard to maintainable during the multi-selection for them to iterate over and over again. So these categories belongs to this group 2. So if I want to select like category 2, so these below items are actually coming from category 2. So in the live scenario, as I have mentioned the slide in the as I mentioned this image inside this slide. So in this case, we are having with the multiple categories. So let's suppose I have selected category 1 and 2. So throughout the items from both of the categories will be listed down here. And if you will be selecting those both of them, so that will be actually marking towards the parent. Maybe console is actually taking this on. Yeah. So this is all implemented. Let me refresh it again. So yeah, if I'm selecting the group 2 here, so you have seen like the ID is mentioned here. Like I have selected down the 2 ID from the groups. So it had actually filtered the tree for categories, and inside every category they are having the multiple items, as you guys can see here. Okay, then these are actually the 3 categories. So if I'm now selecting category 2, so these are actually the 4 items that are actually coming from that they're actually belonging from the category 2. So yeah, inside, however, in the slides I have mentioned, so inside that application we are having the multi-selection for groups and the multi-selection for categories as well. Let's suppose I have selected group 1 and group 2 both from this one. So all the categories that belongs to both of the groups will be coming inside, populating inside the categories drop down. So if I'm selecting both or like 2 or 3 categories from the category drop down, so items that will be belong to that certain selected categories will be listed down here. So if you are now selecting this, so let's suppose I have selected these items. So let me switch on. Yeah. So let's suppose now I have selected these for 3 of the items. So this is actually how the parent will actually listening towards it. So inside the code, as I mentioned, so this is actually the log here, which is actually parent is receiving those child components here. Okay, so this is actually the method which will be triggering out on this output decorator. I mentioned it here. So this tree layer is actually emitting the things from selecting the items here. So after this emitter, so this parent will be receiving the data, as you guys can see the log here. So this is only for showing you guys like how the reusability will going to work. Like let's suppose if I calculate the line of code here, so it is actually 179 line of code from the tree layer TypeScript and 20 lines here. So approximately 20 and 180, like it's around 200 line of code. So I will be using it with a single line throughout the application, like inside the multiple components. So that's how it will be used with. So so this is the coolest stuff. I will show. I will share the repository. I will find the repo for this and will share you guys, so you guys can see the implementation of this car wash booking slider. So yeah, and for the slides, you guys can have my slides on this Bitly link. I will also share this Bitly on my Twitter. So my Twitter is Awais_. So you guys can connect me over, and my LinkedIn dev and GitHub is Muhammad Awais. So I will also share these things over you guys. So that's all. That's all for the slide. So this is actually the main purpose of this talk is to like show how reusability will be working on. So yeah.
That was awesome. I'm glad you already shared the slides here and you're going to share them again on the Twitter, because I love these to begin with. Fantastic. I unfortunately in the chat there weren't really any questions directly here for you. Maybe that Sander had an interesting point to bring up.
In the chat, can I just give shout out to my NGBE bro Yannick?
Yeah, for sure.
Hi, Yannick. Sander, you're muted, I'm afraid. Glad we caught it early. Here we go.
Yeah, I'm going on for hours and hours talking without anyone ever knowing what I'm saying. Yeah, I had a couple of questions. You're building this for your team, right? So
Yeah.
are you using any tool to document this for your team, or is it just...
No, for documentation, because I have actually showing the simple strategies here, but inside that, as I mentioned, it's like 800 plus line of code. So it's actually hard to maintain like which input decorators are there comes in and which output decorators we have to pass in if we want like this reusable will be working is working for 15 use cases. So for every single use case, we are having the different input and output decorators. So that's how we have actually listed that on Jira. So yeah, so for every developer can use like which use case they want to use with. Yeah.
Okay, my next question, I'm assuming this is not the only component you did a couple of them. How do you keep a consistent API between your components? Did you set up some rules for that?
Yeah. For the consistent API calls, we are actually like for this reusable, as I mentioned, this reusable is actually taking inside the taking the endpoint API endpoint as an input decorator. So if that component is rendered and the endpoint is actually for products, so that reusable will be rendered with the data for products. And let's suppose if on another module that component is listed down with the endpoint for users or vendors, so that reusable will be loaded with the data for users and vendors. So this is how the consistency works on the API. Yeah.
That's cool. And do you embrace a limit on the number of inputs and outputs on your components, or do you just have like an upper limit or a lower or something like that?
No. Yeah, no. Like it's for as the team was building this component, so we are for the third layer we have bunched it down and split it out the third layer into the separate reusable. So the buttons on the third layer, they are actually from another reusable that is actually used inside the three-layered reusable to minimize actually the number of input and output decorators to work with. Yeah.
So you are using a hard number, or you're going along as
we are actually. I will also prefer. I will always prefer to have a small number of input decorators and for the lesser output decorators, so that will be easy to maintainable. As I mentioned, the RxJS pattern reactive one, so that is actually very helpful for inside the data binding and throughout the data sharing and splitting. So that will be actually working in a good way. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. Bonnie, any questions for Muhammad? Excellent presentation there. No.
No, that was awesome. Thank you for taking the time to put that together for us.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say as well. Like, I currently not filled up with questions, but that presentation was beautiful and well presented. I guess if there's no more questions, that'll be close to the end. We'll be back not next week, not the week after, but the week after that with another Angular Dutch meetup. And I think we have a little bit of a hangout call going on Angular Nation right after this. Bonnie, can you give us the details for that?
Yeah, which is good because I'm hungry, so I'm just going to grab a quick snack in between. And then we're going to be over on Angular Nation. So you can join angularnation.net if you haven't already and look for us in the Angular Europe channel. And that's all free. You can join it. And then there's an event there. So you have to RSVP before the event starts to get the link. Otherwise, if you just like yell in the chat, somebody will let you in. But yeah, you can go. And that's when everybody's invited to join us. And we're just hanging out, saying hello. Mikhail Kickert's in the chat.
Yeah,
Mikhail, you should come and hang out with us. And also, I believe Niall Crosby from AG Grid is also going to join us in the community. We call it the Dutch Angular Group After Party. And because we were talking about him last week, and so I summoned him, and so he's going to join us too. So, and Muhammad will be there with us. If anybody else has questions.
I was going to ask, like, if people were afraid to ask questions here in the chat, Muhammad will be there as well. I guess we can wrap it up nicely by highlighting Michiel's. Thank you for the presentation, Muhammad. Brilliantly done. And we'll see you in 3 weeks. Have a good one.
For sure.
See you.
Bye-bye. See you.